Welcome to our fourth episode of On the Front Row. Today we have another guest from the Nigerian fashion scene, Ifunanya Dozie. She's the founder of Gelalli, and we're going to just dive into what sustainable fashion looks like in the context of the Nigerian market and even customers and how they relate to sustainability. We're so excited to have you today, Ifunanya. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you, Fola. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this interview. And I know that you just rounded off a very exciting, colorful Lagos Fashion Week. Even we that were watching from the diaspora, there was a lot of FOMO going on just because everything looked so well put together, the outfits. And I wanted to touch on the patchwork skirt that you wore. Was that from one of your brands?
Yes, so it's from a brand called Dozie, and we showcase on our platform. He takes denim waste and upcycles it and converts it into these beautiful pieces. He makes these like flowy denim skirts with a very provocative high slit, um, and it's just incredible.
Oh, lovely. You looked amazing. You looked
Thank you so
amazing.
much. Thank
All
you.
right, and let's just jump right into it. So we're talking about Gelalli today, and then also, just talking about your experience before you landed here, and then also just what the brand is about. So for anyone that doesn't know about the brand, what is Gelalli, and what's the inspiration behind the name?
So, um, so Gelalli is essentially a marketplace to showcase brands that are more conscious of people and planet. Um, we focus predominantly on African brands. I mean, we started in Nigeria. We started early in the year, and we're starting with Nigerian brands, but the goal is to sort of expand
Mhm.
regionally and then sort of take it from there. And so the name is really coined by two words from where my mother is from in Cross River State, which is the south part of Nigeria. It's coined by two words. So one is Gela, which means fashion, and Lidal is lifestyle. I don't know the language that well, but did research and found this out. And so coined together, it's just really, conscious living, fashion, rooted in sort of culture, heritage, and things like that. Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to just check with you, the fashion scene in Nigeria and even Africa is growing astronomically, and there is a lot going on in terms of everyone trying to find their own niche, trying to find their own positioning, either from brand owners or even platforms. What specific need and what specific problem or what specific opportunity is Gelali solving?
So I think it's twofold for me. One, from an aggregation standpoint, I think there's a gap there because I know a lot of people that want African fashion globally, and you have to go to the different brands, message them on Instagram or go on their website to purchase, and it just becomes a bit cumbersome to shop. And so one is to really just sort of have a central aggregation point where you can easily access these brands across the continent. And the second one for me was really, I as I've grown up and started to learn more about the impacts the fashion industry has on our environment, I rather put my money where, in brands that align with my values. And so I've found that even along with that, like going along that line, I've struggled to, find aggregation platforms that really just showcase that aspect of it, like just showcasing brands that are, they may not be 100% sustainable because it is quite difficult and complex to be 100% sustainable, but are doing what they can to try to be conscious of people and planet. And so for me, it's like, it's not even just, and in that regard, it's even more global than just Pan-African because like if
Yeah.
you go to like South America, they're doing really cool things with materials there. They're taking like waste from oceans and converting it into like really beautiful scalable clothes. So the
Yes,
two
sure.
things are the an aggregation from an aggregation perspective, and the second is really just making sure that the brands that I buy or anyone buys aligns with my values. And that's I just found that I couldn't really find that. And It's actually interesting because when you start speaking to the companies, they don't realize that they're actually practicing some level of sustainability. Some of them are not even aware, some are aware.
Yeah.
But it's from speaking to them and like, okay, actually, I'm actually doing this already. And
Hmm.
yes, that's just how because before I buy now, I actually ask questions. I ask the brands questions about just what are you doing to just be a bit more conscious of our planet. And so, yeah,
And I
that's
have to say that you definitely walk the talk because I did a scroll through your Instagram and you have lots of outfits, stunning outfits, I must say, that also like upcycled or coming from some of these designers that are focused on sustainability. So well done to you, looking good and saving the planet. Yeah. And just check on you, and just on a lighter note, what's like the one piece in your wardrobe that is upcycled that is like your favorite? And from what designer?
so there's I'd say two. One isn't on our platform just yet, but one is. So the skirt that you saw me wore, I think that, I mean, because I love that you can dress it up, you can dress it down. It has three buttons on it, so you can wear it high, you can wear it low. So it is kind of versatile in that regard. And I've told the designer now to put buttons so that if someone wanted to close it, they can
Yeah.
actually close it. It's not as provocative. So that's one. And then there's this other brand that I recently found out. They're like a streetwear brand here in Africa, here in
Mhm.
Nigeria. And they do upcycling. Like, so they upcycle denims. Like, I wore a piece from them last week. They take old denim and convert it into these really cool pants. And they use like local embroiderers or local stitching. I think that's what it is. And then they make these really intricate, beautiful designs on on the trousers, on the denim. So it's like it's a one of a kind type of piece. And I remember people were literally like, "Wow, like this is really cool." And yeah, so it's a brand that I don't carry just yet, but hopefully maybe in the future we will. But yeah, they're called Pith Africa.
Mm. I'd love to see that. And I'm probably just gonna put like pictures of those brands on kind of like when I'm editing. So good. And when you're going to onboard a designer on your platform, what kind of gives you the gut feeling that, this one can scale? What do you look out for that gives you like an indication of which brands are likely to be successful?
So we tend to look at brands for one, creativity, two, obviously the three pillars, the three sustainability pillars that we look at when we're one, they have to sort of practice circularity, and circularity meaning that they upcycle, recycle, build with intention, build their pieces
Hmm.
to last, reduce as much waste through their process as possible. And then the second is, the preserving a craft,
Mm.
preserving like a dying craft, because if you know much about the industry here in Africa or in Nigeria, we used to have a booming textile industry. We have lots of crafts and techniques that are unique to us, and just due to the influx of, fast fashion and all of that, those techniques are sort of dying off. But more recently, a lot of brands are now showcasing these techniques and just beautiful designs and whatnot. And so for us, we really want to sort of put our weight behind those type of brands that
Hmm.
are preserving those type of techniques. Um, and then the third one, which is harder to prove, is just making sure that they empower their communities,
Mm.
and just through their value chain, through the value chain, they're supporting their just people through their value chain. So that's harder to prove because people are
Mm.
not
Yeah.
as open and honest. But we're still trying to figure out the best way to get people to be more open and honest about things like that. So one, the creativity and just just how the designer's mind works. And then the
Hmm.
second is, making sure they fit into one of the three pillars that I mentioned. And I think the third one as well, actually, what's really coming out a bit strongly now is their ability to sort of take correction or constructive criticism.
Mm.
And, we're all trying to grow this industry because there is, strong demand for this. And so, you know, and it's also pretty nascent, like focusing on
Yeah.
consciousness and sustainability. I mean, it's not that it's nascent to Africa, but it's the upcycling aspect of it is still kind of new, and there are a few brands that are doing it at scale globally.
Scale. Yeah.
Um, so it's just like, okay, people that are willing to sort of take correction,
Mm.
take advice on business, things like that. That's kind of what we're looking for.
That's interesting. There are several things that you touched on now. I want to come back to in terms of scaling and what that means. And then the other one is the fact that you are still very much largely an e-commerce platform. And I know there's a specific context of what that means within Nigeria and even Africa at large. But then when we go down into the behind the scenes, what are the main challenges that you have that you're trying to solve for, even in building Gelalli now? Oh, Gelalli.
Then it's fine.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Gelalli, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
So the main challenges, a lot of the brands a lot of brands are very creative
Mhm.
focused, and there's so much talent and just they're just raw. Like there's just so talented here, and the creativity is really just bursting. But on the business side of things, you do see some gaps there that I do think could be supported, because if you look at how other industries have grown. I mean, people have ideas, people have
Yeah.
the creativity, but then sometimes that needs harnessing, and it needs that commercial aspect of it. It needs technical assistance, it needs capacity building, it needs funding, right? I mean, it needs all these things to help get it from that creative idea to something that's actually scalable. So what we're finding is that there's a bit of sort of back end challenges on that front. That's so you said challenges, and then what else?
Yeah, I think, yeah, challenges and like, the skill factor. I think one that we can also just touch on is even, the artisanal nature of things. And you want to scale and standardize. And at the same time, there's still an artisanal nature to it. So if I use, for example, brands that are very craft focused, you have the caveat on it. This is handmade. Each product to each product is not going to be consistent. There'll be some inconsistencies there, but at the same time, I should be able to walk in and say, oh, I would like a size 12 of this. I wish I was a size 12. I would like a size 12 of this, and I expect this particular sizing. Is that something you've been able to get over? Is that something you've been able to solve for, or is still part of the challenges that you have in that skill part?
Sizing is quite interesting, and it's a good question because it's something that we're currently facing now.
Mm-hmm.
Because each brand is different, right? And their charts are different, and how they do their measurements and whatnot is different. Um, and so what we're trying to solve for is how can we standardize these sizing across the board so that it just makes it easier for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But also recognizing that, some of the materials that are being used, right, they're a bit stiffer, not as sort of flexible. If you think about like an actual or, so in most cases, it's always easier to be made to your size
Measurement, yeah.
now, or made to your measurement. So now it's like, okay, how do you make it in a way that can be scalable, right? That can be, similar to like, that can be exportable and not be sent back for amendments and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't have the 100% answer, at least from my point of view. But I think this is where, there's an opportunity in the market where there's, I mean, if you look at like intrinsically how we were in Africa, how we've always been in Africa. Like we saw things on demand. If it's not our size, you go back and you amend it. You go back, you just keep tweaking it till and so I think there's a opportunity there in the sense that like, this is where partnerships with tailoring services, for instance, could come to help
Mm-hmm.
with the amendments and making sure that things fit to the way you want it. And yeah, so I know that there's a company, and I think in the UK that's doing something like that, that, they just amend clothes because it's also part of sustainability so that
Yeah.
you don't throw it away, just get it amended and whatnot. But yeah, it's something that we're currently facing, and it's something that we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out how to standardize the sizing as much as possible across
Mm-hmm.
the board because it is something that has come up
Yeah,
quite,
you have to work on that.
yeah.
And do you think even running a I'm trying to see if we can marry two worlds together because can you marry the e-com side where it's on demand at the same time with an atelier model where it's still kind of made to demand? And so maybe you have like a mix of models where you have some base sizing for maybe more generic ones, t-shirts, shirts, and then for other ones are kind of also made to in an atelier model where it's made on demand. And that kind of lends to sustainability because you're producing for demand and there is little to no room for surplus or wastage in your production? I think that could all be an interesting one to explore.
So I would say what we've been doing in the past, we hold some inventory and then we also do like made to order. So when orders come in, we place them with the brands. And in some cases, the brands ask us to just maybe ask them for their measurements. And they
Mm,
send in their measurements. And then at that point, it then fits perfectly.
mm.
But is that scalable? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Um,
it will be hard.
it'll be difficult to scale something like that. And so that's why standardizing sizing becomes really important, especially as you're trying to export globally.
Export.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Good call on that one. And I like to ask this question to everyone I'm speaking to in the fashion industry. You have been given $10 million as a strategic investor to solve the most pertinent issues in the fashion landscape. So either supply chain, infrastructure, whatever it is, where are you putting the money?
Okay, so if you look at the value chain, right, of fashion, we have your farming aspect of it that produces cotton, or your chemicals that produce the polyesters and the more synthetic fibers. Then you have your textile milling, like where they take the raw material and convert it into textiles. You have the dyeing, all of that, turn it into printing. Then you have the garment production where it then starts to produce garments, all of that. Where we are current, and I can only speak for Nigeria, right? So
Yeah,
when we look at the value chain, where we have the most activity is around garment production,
yeah,
right? So garment production, the people that produce, a lot of them import their textiles. Um, a lot of them, some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them also, that have used a very fragmented supply chain of like, maybe going to like the villages, Akwete, to make the Akwete materials or Ashoke and things like that. That's on a very sort of small scale compared to the size of our industry. So for me, if you were to give me $10 million, I would put it in the textile manufacturing aspect of it and figure out how can we produce more textiles to service that garment industry to reduce the reliance on imports.
ports.
Because we used to have a booming textile industry till the influx till it just no
Yeah,
longer existed, right? And I think there's a huge opportunity there for investment to come in and really be the oil of this machine that's moving, this industry that's moving, because people are buying. People
yeah,
want to buy from Africa. People are very interested. Our things are unique. Our things are very creative. And so I feel like if we had that aspect of it, that beginning aspect of it, and if there was lot more infrastructure to service this industry, I think that would really move the needle in terms of even price point, in terms of sustainability. There's all kinds of things. I think there'll be so many benefits to fixing that early end of
mm,
the supply chain. And then obviously the tail end of it, like e-commerce platforms such as ours, would obviously need support in terms of technology, in terms of, being able to also just, in some cases, I know we want to stay away from inventory risk, but these brands need funding upfront
they need
to be
stock.
able to
Yeah,
produce, right? I mean, they need the funding, so wholesale orders, for instance, or some sort of arrangement around, where they can have the funding upfront to then produce would make a lot of sense for them as well. Because a lot of them are, hand to mouth, or, they need that initial capital to get them going. So on that end, there's also funding I would put there to also kind of help beef up the exploitation aspect of it. Yeah.
yeah. I just like asking this question because everyone has a different perspective, and it seems like everyone kind of talks to where the shoes are pinching the most. And so most of the responses I get are typically around logistics or the manufacturing bits. So talking about you having state of the art garment manufacturing facilities. But then I love the fact that you just went back into the point on the actual supply itself. Because something else that I found also interesting was the fact that even our local fabric manufacturing still relies on imports. The cotton for the Adira is still imported. The silk thread for Ashoke is still imported from China. And so it's like, where do we want to start from? Do we start with just building local supply or even just beefing up the production itself? And I like the fact that you just talked about beefing up the production because then, it's we can get a bit more scale to satisfy the local market and the global market as well. Good one.
All phases of the value chain have its own challenges, right? I mean, like um, with cotton, that's agriculture, that's farming. Like you need to be able to
Hmm.
farm cotton, and harvest it. So I think there is some activity that sort. There are cotton farmers in Nigeria currently, but
Hmm.
it needs to probably be done at scale. That's agriculture. That's not my space. You know,
Yeah.
I do hear you on the imports. I mean, you still have to import the threads, at least to service, even for their showcase and whatnot. They still do import the threads. But this is where there's a gap. Benin Republic is doing a lot in textile manufacturing, and I think they also import their threads. But sometimes, let me think about this a bit. I feel like I'm going all over the place.
Hmm.
Right. I think we might have to take this question again.
Yeah, I know. It actually wasn't a question, it was more like a commentary because we can't solve for it. Like,
Okay, yeah. So
yeah,
it's
we can't solve. I mean, we have to pick the battles.
exactly. So I think
Um,
so that
yeah.
solving for that cuts across different sectors. As I said, it cuts across agriculture. It cuts across um, even like the silkworms. I hear that there's silkworms in somewhere in Ogun State or
Mm,
in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Yeah, but the challenge is sort of doing it at scale. I'm not sure what the right incentive structures are to get it up off the ground. But I hear that
yeah.
there are silkworms here in the country.
Hmm. And honestly, like as you were speaking, I'm just thinking about it. I'm actually not mad about because if we look at the buy, build, assemble model, which is where we're kind of falling into, we don't really need to go back and start because I mean, invest in infrastructure to start manufacturing, metal thread or silk thread. It would in terms of the value add. If it's import, fine, but let's just have that artisanal base that can manufacture that can produce the fabric. So we pick a battles to fight. But then I mean, if that's one that we can solve for now, I think it's a good one to just tackle. Yeah. And now let's talk about sustainability in the context of Nigeria and Africa. I always like to quote I like to quote what one of my friends said, and I'm going to say it in pidgin. A person we don't chop belleful. If you think about sustainability, that's just like a slang to say it's only someone who is like well satisfied and in a certain financial comfortable level that can start thinking about the environment. And I know we kind of have this mindset, but then how has that been for you in leading with sustainability, not just as a branding but as a real ethos for what you're doing?
So look, I think you don't know what you don't know, right? You if you don't know that the fashion industry has implications on the environment, or maybe you do, you've heard it, you've seen some things here and there, and it's not digestible or relatable, you don't really understand the challenge. And so why would you really care about the solution, right? I mean, like if you don't really understand, you know what I mean? So I feel like we need to do better at sort of creating awareness
Mm,
around some of these issues. And I think, look, like in Africa, I mean, we are historically sustainable. I think I've said
yeah.
this in the past. Like I said, we practice a lot of slow fashion, slow production processes. We things are made to order. We they produce these textiles with no electricity. I mean, think about it, like no electricity is all done by hand. So little carbon emissions emitted, through that process. We, like I said, we amend our clothes if it didn't fit
Yeah.
back in the day. And so when we talk about sustainability and fashion in Africa, it's a different challenge, I think, and I think it's one that we have to try to come up with solutions for ourselves and come up
Mm,
and redefine what sustainability means to us. And from the environmental perspective, I think why it's relevant here is just because of the amount of waste that we produce.
yeah.
There's a lot of waste in this
Mm,
fashion industry. I mean, you can go to like Tejo Show Market, for instance, and which is a market on Lagos in Lagos, and there are hundreds of tailors that are just producing on demand. And in a day, they produce tons of waste of like textile scraps and offcuts and trimmings and things like that. And it just goes to landfills. It's
yeah.
mixed up in other things and, it just goes straight to landfills and it's lost economic value. And it just causes distress on our landfills and to the environment. So look, I know like back to your comment of
A
person
person
way
we
what
don't
did
chop.
you say? Person
We don't chop belleful.
I mean like I said, like if you don't understand the challenge, right? I mean you won't
Mm,
what's your business, right? And also there's other competing priorities other than
yeah,
did they upcycle this one or did they not upcycle this
yeah.
one? You know. So look, I think like people just don't really care because they don't know. They don't
They
know.
don't know.
We could try to create more stories, try to, tell more people about some of the implications and why, why put your money where, if it aligns with your values, put your money there.
Put your money
Or we
there.
could just do the work for you. You don't even have to care about it. Just shop and, we're the ones doing the work in the background.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know how else to answer that.
No, no, you did good. And but you painted a picture that I just want to recap for audience. Like we inherently in our consumer behavior, and if we put aside importation and fast fashion, Nigerians, Africans, we're very, very sustainable in our practices. I'm just thinking about it. The fact that you would buy your fabric, take it to a tailor, it's made to measurement, there is no waste. And even if there's excess fabric, you're taking your fabric with you, or you're asking him to make something else for either a child or in the same, I mean, we don't
Are
waste.
you tight as
And
a
even
scarf?
those outfits, you use them. If it's something that you've worn repeatedly and you've grown out of it, you're packing it and you're sending it to the village at Christmas, or you are handing it down to someone. It's only when it's worn and torn. Even then, like you, if you take a Ira mobile, you will still use the Ira mobile as a cover, as something else. Like we use until it's
About
waste.
it. Like in school, they teach home economics. They teach you how to sew.
Yeah, to
Like it's
sew.
part of the
Yeah,
curriculum. So if you have a little hole, you go and sew it and fix it up, as
yeah,
opposed to going to buy a new outfit. But times are changing, right? And it's like
yeah.
that was what we did back then. I mean, now do we do that as much? Probably not.
No,
We don't,
mm.
right? I mean, and like with our Ashrabi culture, where we,
Actually, the
there's so many
culture has
weddings, we have,
changed.
yeah, it
Yeah,
really changes things. I remember
yeah.
growing up, like my family, like I come from a big family, and
Hmm.
they would have their traditional outfits to wear, and then for each, because there's so many grandkids and there were so many weddings, they would just mix and match instead of having to buy new materials every
New
time.
materials.
I was like, okay, bring that silver blouse from that person's wedding and that red wrapper from the other person, and they'll
Yeah.
just put it together, and they will look absolutely stunning. And at least they wouldn't
Mm.
have to keep buying new stuff.
Buying fab. Oh my goodness. If now you touched on something, Ashwebi culture has changed the way we even consume as well. Because then you buy these outfits, you wear them once, probably you wear them to church, because they're not very functional. The way I don't want to when you then layer in corsets and all the trends that we have now, like most of these outfits are made to be worn once. And where are they going to? Oh, that's wow. I think that was just a very eye-opening one. And our behavior, our
Yeah,
consumer behavior is also shifting, and we are, yeah.
has changed so much. Spend, I think the last statistics I saw, which was sometime last year, we spend 60% more on clothes than we did in 2010. So think
Hmm.
about it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that number is even more because even forget the Ashrabi culture, just even keeping up with social media,
Yeah.
always wanting to look nice. And look, I mean, everybody loves looking nice, right?
Hmm.
There's this urge to have new things, for newness. I don't know, that
Hmm.
social media gives, like, social media does. Like, that's like what they're meant for. It just keep pushing all kinds of things in your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just makes you want more, makes you want more and more.
Yeah.
And so for us, I mean, I look, I don't encourage buying too much, but like I encourage, at least putting your money where your
Your
value.
values are.
Yeah. So like for
Mm.
us, that's why we're really into upcycling and trying to, or circularity, because circularity is so important in this space
Hmm.
because of how much waste we produce.
Yeah.
And so that's why we really want brands that are, to be more circular inclined. So just thinking, just let the circle keep going,
Hmm.
in terms of like even um, from the point of production, it's even to the end, something should be able to happen to it. Even when you're taking it apart, it should be easy to recycle. Because recycling is such a challenge now because of the mix of all kinds of materials and compositions of fibers, it makes it very difficult to recycle. And that's a whole other conversation that I can go into. But yeah, so the recycling challenge is really difficult. So that's why a lot of people are doing upcycling and
Yeah.
things. So yeah.
Yeah. It's really an interesting one. And so we talked about scaling earlier, and I wanted to come back to that. One of the brands that you currently carry, Azach, I think they do like the patchwork denim. They currently focus on upcycling waste denim. But then I wanted to check with you, sourcing waste fabric for upcycling can only go so far in terms of, how much fabric supply you're having. Do you think there's a point where scale and sustainability clash? Or can those two ambitions coexist, profitably and economically?
Okay, so I'll talk about Lagos first, and then go more broadly. So data shows that Lagos State alone, which is one of 36 states in Nigeria, is about 13,000 tons of waste daily. So that's not all textile waste. About 8% to 8 to 10% of that is textile waste. So that's a
Mm.
significant amount of
Yeah.
waste that's produced on a daily basis. When we say textile waste, it includes the offcuts, the trimmings, it includes like the secondhand clothing, all of that. So I think that's what is all included in that. A pair like denim is also part of that, right? So I think so. My point is that the challenge is still so big, and we still haven't yet cracked how to solve the issue around the textile waste that we produce. I think we're doing in Nigeria, Lagos State is doing a great job with like the plastics, the PET recycling. Textile waste is now, up on the agenda, and I think people are now really trying to figure out how can we solve this issue of textile waste and how can we put it to good use and how can we because waste it's just less lost economic value really, so trying to figure out how can we solve for this. And then more broadly, I think globally there are brands that are doing upcycling and doing it at scale, and when we say scale, obviously it means that they're doing it on a large production process and whatnot and have more, so there's a brand that comes to mind, Marine Serra, which is a
Mm.
French eponymous brand. I think they're an LVMH finalist winner. So they have their brand is, I think, 50% of their production, or 50% of their capsule collection, if I'm not mistaken, is produced using upcycled materials, and the rest of it is more like innovative, sustainable materials. And basically that 50%, they have apparently, I saw this online, a 70 team production line where they get discarded clothes, bed sheets, whatnot, take it apart, and then design it back and put it back together into the pieces that they now sell. And they sell at over 225 points of sales globally. In I think it was 2020 or so. I'm not entirely sure, but they I think they had revenues of about 15 million euros.
That's nice.
And so that shows scale to a certain degree. I mean, there's not a lot of information on their financials, whether they're profitable and whatnot. But however, it gives some signal of scale, of being able to scale upcycled materials. And so I think there's lessons to be learned from
Yeah.
that here. Azach is wonderful. He's really a new sort of emerging brand, and a lot of those lessons we're trying to sort of instill them in these brands as well, just to transfer knowledge in case they're not aware. This is another brand is doing it and then doing it at scale, whether they're profitable or not. I think, which is a very important part of this, and is information that's not readily available. Whether or not they're financially sustainable, I don't know. But at least on the environmental aspect of it, it shows that at least there's some level of scale there for
Mm.
upcycling.
Interesting one. I love the reference you made in terms of the LVMH investment. I think another one that also catches my eye is Nona Source. So they've invested in this company that collects dead stock fabric from the different maisons across the group, and they sell to upcoming fashion designers. So it's just a good way to repurpose fabric that would have otherwise been dead stock. And I think if we can have that in Nigeria as well, that would be interesting. But then thinking about, putting our money where the mouth is, do you think investors are ready for this conversation? Are they ready to put their money in a sustainable brand?
So I think, look, if you're able to prove the numbers, I mean, that's what they want, right? I mean, they want to 2x, well, not 2x, they want to 10x their money in most cases. So yeah, if you're able to prove the financials of it, and if the investor also has patient capital, I
Mm,
think it could be really, really interesting. Because what I'm seeing, at least, we just started, and there's a lot of demand for this stuff. And I think it's not just the sustainability part of it, it's the creativity part of it as well.
creativity.
I
Yeah.
think, people want to look nice, and they also want to know that their money is going to places that align with their values in some cases. Yeah, I think the industry here is probably ready for some type of real funding because there are brands now that are doing things at scale and are really, are strong and, really have their strong brand identity and, are bringing in cash flows on a monthly, strong cash flows and are EBITDA positive, things like that. So I do think that investors should be looking into this space, 100% actually, because it is quite ripe and people are watching. The world is watching. The
The
world,
world is watching. Yeah.
Lagos Fashion Week. I mean, look at all the international houses that have covered it. Vogue Business, Essence was here. I mean, there's just so much spotlight now on African fashion and particularly Lagos.
Yeah. And so still on the money, when you talk to investors, I don't know how many conversations you've had with investors so far. It'll be interesting to see that. But then when investors say that sustainability can scale in the Nigerian context, what's your response to that?
Okay, so first of all, we haven't spoken to investors just yet for this. And the reason being, I want to show a bit of traction first. And so we started, as I mentioned, we officially launched in June. And so, I'm really excited to start the journey of investor hunting, because I do think that we've gathered some really cool insights and data so far on the industry. But I think when they say sustainability can't scale, I think, like I said in the other question about like marine Sarah, like we've seen that, with the revenues that at least it can get to a point of scale in terms of production and what access to the deep down financials. And I would love to just to understand a bit more. Yeah, I think we've proven that sustainability on itself, and I think, and I mentioned that earlier, it's really hard for companies to be truly 100% sustainable.
Yeah.
And so for us, like I said, we're taking it a step down and just sort of focusing on brands that are at least they're trying to be sustainable. They're doing, they're more conscious of people and planet. They're more intentional. They're more thoughtful, as opposed to saying that they're 100% sustainable when it's really tough to be. So in that regard, I think consciousness can definitely scale because it's a step. I think a lot of global brands are conscious. Like even the Gucci's. Like if you look at Gucci, like they do quite a bit in the sustainability space, but they also recognize that look, we have to meet our bottom line. Things like that. So I think the consciousness aspect of it makes it a little less greenwashing, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so, yeah, when we say sustainability can't scale, I'm not even sure that's even the right phrase.
Mm.
It's because the fashion industry can scale. It can scale, and I think conscious brands that are more conscious can scale. Now, those that are 100% sustainable, I mean, we've seen some that at least that are environmentally sustainable. They have proven some level of scale.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. That's a good one. And on a positive note, let's talk about the future of Gelalli. What does success look like in, let's even go short term. What does success look like in 5 years?
but nobody has asked me this.
Dream big. You have a sh you have a shop in Nordstrom.
So for me, I would love to do stuff with the bigger retailers because I
Hmm.
don't intend to have a storefront as of this. I think this
Mm.
is it's purely digital, but I would love to partner with the bigger retailers like the Selfridges. I know Selfridges are very big on like sustainability and
Yeah.
consciousness of people and planet. I know they have like Selfridges Project Earth. There's obviously Net-a-Porter. Net-a-Porter is a digital platform, but they have Net
Yeah.
Sustain. And so I would love to do something with like a Selfridges, for instance. Maybe some sort of installation, something in their
Yeah.
store.
Pop-ups perhaps.
Pop-ups, but like more than just a pop-up. I want it to be like an installation where you can come
Yeah.
and actually learn a bit more about some of these things and why these brands are doing what they're doing, whilst obviously also making sales. And so for me, I really want like Gelalli to be at the forefront of transforming, the industry here because I come from a background of sustainable energy, as I don't know, I didn't mention it earlier, but like I've worked in the sustainable energy investment and development space for some time, and
Hmm.
I've seen how systems, how technical assistance, how funding, all these things when they're in place, how they can, really drive a market. And so the industry, as I see it now, there's just so much potential, but there's a lot of things that are very fragmented and I think could do with a bit more hand-holding and support that I would love to be at the forefront of that driving, well, not driving force, but at least to help in the little way that we can on the business and commercial side of things for the industry.
And do you also see the brand pivoting to other areas, maybe touching interiors, wellness designs, using upcycled materials, or even just being that marketplace for, all these artisanal recyclers as well that we have?
So yeah, I think look, one, the platform is the
One at
platform.
a time.
But I do think that what we're seeing is that we're probably going to have like an advisory arm at some point because to formalize, the type of support that we're providing to the brands currently,
Mm,
we say like an investment arm where we invest in some of these companies. I don't know if I need to say that. I think that might be confusing. So really just advisory, I think,
mm,
just because we've seen even just within the past few months of operating, we've learned quite a bit about the industry. And I'm just really excited to keep learning because
yeah.
I'm literally driven by data and curiosity at this point. And so we've collected a lot of data so far, and that's really insightful to the industry. I think like Lagos Fashion Week have done an incredible job of spotlighting brands that are more sustainable or are
Okay.
sustainable. They have a green access program where they actually even, I think it's like an incubation program
Okay.
um, for sustainable brands. So I've actually like spoken to some of the brands from there. So it's a great way for people to even know that these brands exist. But I think we need to invest more in storytelling and marketing and public relations. I think we need to identify more brands. I think it's going to be a lot of hand holding because, like I said, some brands already are aware that they're somewhat sustainable, but probably don't know how to fully be more sustainable or more conscious of
Hmm.
the planet. So there's that. There's also helping more on the commercial side of things, as I mentioned, which is also part of the hand-holding process. Um, yeah, and then obviously just continuing to try to create more demand. And I think that's really through the investing in the storytelling, investing in marketing, as I said,
Mm.
because that's a really big part of it. Yeah.
Good. Alrighty. And what is one global brand that you would love to collaborate with?
Maybe Marine Sarah, actually. I'm actually pretty intrigued by the brand. And I love their
Mm.
piece. I didn't even know this until I started researching. I was like, wait, who are the brands out there that are doing really cool stuff in the sustainable fashion thing, other than Patagonia? Patagonia is like the poster child for
Yeah.
sustainability, and I think they've been able to, even on the financial aspect of it as well, they've done quite well. Stella McCartney is also another interesting one that I do find really interesting. They've spent a lot investing in like innovative
Yeah.
materials
Fabric
and
innovation. Yeah.
sustainable fabric innovation
Mm.
and whatnot. Um, yeah, but the financials, from what's online, I don't think they've been profitable, but still, um, I'd love to just speak to someone there to understand more, about the brand and
Hmm.
see if there's any room there. I don't know. I don't even know what a collaboration would look like, but these are the
Yeah. Great. And putting it out there to the universe, just let's end on a super positive note. What agency would you like to collaborate with? If you have your eyes on one, let's just end on that one.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if I were to partner with any agency that I think is doing really cool work in this space, there's quite a few of them that I've been watching from the sidelines. There's Fashion for Good. There's the UN Fashion Impact Fund.
I think it's the Global Ethical Finance Initiative. I think they also touch on fashion as well, sustainable manufacturing as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So these are things. Yeah, these are in, agencies or funds that I've been watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know what it looks like, but yeah, we'd love to
Yeah.
just have conversations.
Okay, and one last one. What is one trend that you would like to see die, and one trend, fashion trends now, and one that you would like to bring back?
Trends that I want to see.
If I was going to answer, I would say number one, I would like to see quiet luxury just die because I think it's a scam. And it's just making us buy basics, and we try to look like these ultra chic people. I like the concept of minimalism, but like just selling it and packaging it as a trend, it makes people invest in basics. They keep buying more t-shirts and more sweaters, trying to achieve the cashmere look. It doesn't work if you don't have the aesthetic, because let just people just dress how they want to dress. Fashion was more creative a few years ago. Fashion was more enjoyable a few years ago, but now we're so formulaic about everything. And yeah, anyways.
I hear you on that. I mean, I'm just thinking of like the times when I scroll on social media and the things that I see on like TikTok, for instance, is like I've seen some designers in school, like fashion designers in school, like using like things around the house or like espresso pods, things that would generally be considered waste and converting it into really cool things. I don't know if it's a trend, but I just find it so cool and just so creative. Um, and things that the fashion industry could learn from, really. So I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know much trends. I don't. Nothing is
You don't follow trends.
really trend.
Yeah.
I think but I do think I agree with you as well. Like originality seems it's still there, but like people are they want to keep up with what's happening. You know what I mean? Like for that viral, people are also searching viral moments and finding,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing because obviously, like there's a lot of money that's involved in like influencer marketing and just putting yourself out there, um, which is a great thing because this is income that a new income stream that people weren't really aware of before, and you can see how it changes lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really struggling with this question.
No,
Sorry.
no, it's fair. I mean, fair enough. Like, fair enough. I have no beef with kind of like the whole infestation, but it's just let's bring back a bit more originality to the way we dress. Like everything is so formulaic. I love Pinterest, but then at the same time too, I'm always just telling myself, get inspiration with a bit of yourself. Like you don't want to just be cookie cutter and just following Pinterest looks. But yeah, it's an interesting one because it definitely does shape how we purchase and how we consume. If we're constantly being fed repeated images, and we're being told what good looks like, what stylish looks like, and we look at our wardrobe, we start becoming critical of even the things we own and even the way we look ourselves, and we're trying to shape ourselves. I mean, that's another conversation for another day, but I think we can just wrap up on such a note. We've just come to a very good place to put a pin on this discussion. It's just been such a very enlightening one speaking with you, Ifunanya. And we are proud of what you're doing with Gelalli. I think you're doing something great, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish in the next few years. Yeah, looking to hear more from the brand.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paula, and thank you for putting this platform together. I think Front Row Files is a really cool initiative. And yeah, looking forward to where you take your this business as well too.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. Yeah, and on that note, we're ending this episode. Thank you so much for everyone that joined. If you enjoyed this episode, please share. Share with someone who loves fashion, share with someone who loves sustainable fashion, and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye.